Can you share any other times where you've maybe resisted a pivot and kind of what made you to realize that eventually that was the right course to take?
I mean, I think every time there's going to be resistance because like change is something that's not easy.
Mike Rama, founder at Brands Meet Creators.
Right? I look back at each one of these pivots and every single one of them, I'm like, I wish we would have done that earlier. Like I saw the writing on the wall. I knew that it was eventually going to lead to there. And it was just more of like kind of dragging our feet with it. And a lot of times it doesn't have to be this all or nothing, right? It's not like, oh, we're going to shut down everything over here and start something new. I almost think of them as like a test. If I sent that email and no one responded, okay, business as usual. We're still doing the same thing. So I wish I would have kind of tested other things quicker, because I guess there's two different types of pivots. There's one where you make a decision and it's irreversible, right? Those are really tough to do, and I try not to do that. There's other ones where it's like, hey, we're going to test this thing. All right, we're just going to throw it out here, see what happens. Who knows? Maybe we get crickets. If we get crickets, nothing changed at all.
Mike, bienvenido, Founders and Empanadas. Great to have you on board, man.
How we doing, brother? Cheers.
Welcome.
Let's do it.
So, Mike, we met about 2 years ago through our mutual friend and former Founders and Empanadas episode attendee, Rob. He connected us. And throughout our time together in Medellin, I've loved hearing more about your story and your business journey and the pivots you've taken along the way. So today will be a masterclass from Mike on how to effectively make the pivot. So Mike, without further ado, I'd love for you to share with the audience a little bit more about your background and how you went about creating Brands Meet Creators.
Absolutely. Yeah, so Brands Meet Creators, I started the company back in 2021. And like you mentioned, we've definitely pivoted plenty of times along the way. We've kind of had, one core vision the whole time, which is helping brands and creators to connect, right? And we've kept that core vision the same, but how we've gone about doing that has changed quite a bit over the years. And yeah, super excited to dive into to all of those pivots along the way.
Awesome. How's the empanada?
Pretty good. I think I got a beef one to start. Carne de res, something like that.
Muy bien. And then today's unofficial sponsor is Electrolit. Tell me about your love story with this bad boy right here.
Dude, I mean, they're like $1 on Rappi Turbo. I just order these things all the time. They're so good. Keeps me hydrated. Yeah, I'll drink like 2 of these today,
I love it. So share a little bit more about your origin story and how you transitioned from corporate to the entrepreneurial ventures.
Was working up in New York City after I graduated college. Worked there for 3.5 years, something like that. A couple of different jobs. I was doing like data analytics, marketing analytics. Whole time I'm in New York though, I knew I didn't want to work a corporate job. Like I knew that 6 months being into it. The biggest problem though was like, all right, how do I get out, right? I worked my whole life to get here. I was working for like a big tech company. I always thought that was the goal. And then I got there and I'm like, this isn't it. This ain't the goal. So I went through my side hustle phase, right? Where you're just testing stuff. Like every business model, you name it, I did it. The whole drop shipping, build an agency, Amazon FBA, build a blog, affiliate marketing, all the stuff. I was just, trying it left and right. 2020 comes, COVID hits, and I'm in New York City. That's like the worst place in the world to be at the time. So I end up moving back to my mom's house during that time. And that's when a couple of things started clicking for me. Like I was running Facebook ads at the time. That was like, the side hustle at the moment. Running Facebook ads for like local businesses and then also affiliate offers. So I would run Facebook ads and then I wouldn't have to focus on anything else, right? Since I'm running it to an affiliate product, I don't have to worry about fulfillment. I don't have to worry about sales. I don't have to worry about the product. It's just like playing this very simple game of let's say this product's $3,000 as an affiliate, I get a commission for $1,000. Can I spend less than $1,000 to sell it on Facebook? And that was it. That was the game. And I started to get really good at that. Started to make enough money that I could quit my job if I wanted to. Had a decent amount of savings saved up because I was making a New York City salary, living at my mom's house. Saved up some money for 6 months and then, moved to Mexico and just went, all in on the entrepreneur side of things.
And why did you land on Mexico and what eventually led you to where we're at now in Medellin?
So Mexico was not my first choice. but it was really the only place I could go at the time, right? This is summer 2020. Whole world is still shut down. I'm at my mom's house and I'm like, I got to get out of here. And I wanted to go to Thailand. I wanted to go to all these other places. Everywhere was closed. I ended up moving to Playa del Carmen with like one of my best friends. And yeah, it was really the only place on earth that was open. Moved there. I was there for about a year. And then I just wanted to start traveling again. Places started to open. So just made my way through Central America. Like I hit Costa Rica, I hit Nicaragua, El Salvador, Panama. Came here. I'd been here once before and was initially planning on staying a month or two and just like fell in love with everything here. And I was like, all right, I'm going to stay for a while. And that turned into, I don't know, two and a half years now at this point.
That's a common story here.
Yeah.
I came for 1 week and it turned into 7 years.
That's how it goes. That's how it goes with everybody.
It's easy to get trapped here.
Mm-hmm.
And Mike, walk us through a little bit more about the development of Brands Meet Creators. What was the pain point that you were trying to solve for? And what were some of the pivots that you made along the way?
So initially starting out, I was still in that like affiliate marketing world. So when I launched Brands Meet Creators, we were actually helping brands and content creators to connect on like an affiliate level. And for me, I was kind of just doing whatever I could to pay the bills, right? I'm basically like a freelancer at this point, trying to make a couple $1,000 just to live. So that's how Brands Meet Creators started. And we eventually evolved into more of an agency, right? So I get on TikTok, I start just making content, right? Because it's what you got to do when you're trying to grow a business. It's like, all right, I got to put myself out there. Knew I needed to do it. So TikTok was the platform at the time that was really blowing up. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna get on TikTok. I'm just gonna start talking about marketing concepts, right? I'm talking about Facebook ads. I'm talking about YouTube ads, all the stuff that I had like some experience in. And then from there, I just started to get people reaching out to me like, hey, can you help me with TikTok? Can you help me connect with content creators? And like, I was just a glorified freelancer at this time. Like I'm doing anything that people ask for. And it kind of came out of this, need that I saw in the market and really just people reaching out to me like, hey, I have this e-com brand. I want to work with content creators. Can you help me find them? And so from there, hired a couple assistants in the Philippines. They would like, we would find a brand that would come to us. They would go reach out, like try to hire content creators. So that's really where we started. Kind of the pure agency model. Brands would come to us. We would kind of help them hire a content creator. Initially, we were doing like affiliate type deals, but then it became more of like, all right, let's just hire a content creator to help us run their TikTok accounts. And that was really the inception of the whole thing.
I love it. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you first sourced your Philippines virtual assistants and some of the cultural nuances you found of working with them.
I forget where I was first like exposed to even that concept, because that's for a lot of people that's like a novelty, right? They don't even think about doing that. So I forget where I was first exposed to that, but yeah, ultimately just used like one of the big Filipino job boards, made a job post. I think I might have had a buddy at a time who had done it a couple times and just gave me like an SOP, like, hey, here's follow this, post this job, have some like specific instructions that they're gonna follow. You filter out 90% of the people because they don't even follow the instructions. Then you're left with like a few. Do some interviews and then bring them on board. And those first two hires that I made, actually, they're still on my team today. And it's crazy because they were doing something totally different from before to what they're doing now. But, our whole team, like one of our core values is adaptability, right? And so they're just like super flexible, have been doing a ton of different things. But yeah, both in the Philippines, still on our team today.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's a great value to have because as any business goes through changes, there is that need for adaptability. And, walk me through how you help manage team morale through pivots and through significant changes that impacts the scope of their responsibilities and scope of their work.
Great question. So I guess I'll talk through this first pivot and then we can kind of talk about how that relates to the team.
Yeah.
But first year of business, we were all agency model, right? So we're basically looking for brands. They want to work with us. They want us to help them hire content creators. Did that for about a year. Built the team up to 4 or 5 people at the time. It was like myself, a couple of people in the Philippines, one person in the US, kind of like an account manager. And we took that to somewhere around like $20,000 a month. And like, I just really didn't like the agency model. And I was a pretty bad manager, right? I'm still like, I don't consider myself a great manager. I'm much better now. back then I was a terrible manager, and I didn't want like a big team. So we got to this point where I was just doing so many calls. My whole job was just calls with creators to help make these partnerships happen, calls with the brands. And I was kind of looking for a way out of the agency model. I was like, there's got to be something better than this. And what I started to notice was about 90% of our inbound leads, 90% of my DMs actually weren't brands asking. It was always content creators. They were like, hey, next time you get a brand, hook me up. I want one of these brand deals. I want one of these. And for me, that was really annoying at the time because I'm like, yo, I'm sorry, I don't have anything for you. Like, it was kind of like, get out of my DMs. Like, I need to go find these brands to work with. So at one point I was like, all right, you know what? I got to do something for these content creators. Let me just get them on an email list. So that way, when I do have a brand ready to go, I have this like network of creators that I can tap into. So that kept happening like for months, where it was like 90% of all of our leads were content creators. And I was always like, I'm sorry, I can't help you. Like, I'm not going to hop on a phone call with you. I have nothing to sell you. Like, sorry, we can't work together. And then at one point I was like, you know what? Like, I think I need to just listen to what the market is telling me right now, right? Where everyone that's coming to me is content creators. Like, maybe we should do something for content creators. I had been around the whole, like, coaching model, community online course model before. And I was like, let me just experiment with this. Let me just put out I'll put out one email, an email blast to, I think I had like maybe 3,000 creators on the list at the time, maybe like 5, something like that. So let me just put out a teaser. Let me see, like, what if I did like a program where instead of, everyone just DMing me, asking these questions, what if I would just like did a, 6-week program? I'll give you guys the contract templates. I'll tell you what these brands are looking for, how to price yourself, how to go find them, how to position yourself, what content they want. And I sent that to the email list. I was like, if you're interested, just like shoot me a DM. Just curious. I think I had like 300 to 350 DMs from that. And that's when I was like, oh, that I got something here. There's something here. And so that was like our first core pivot, where I was like, at the point, I felt like I couldn't take the agency any further, because typically to scale an agency, you need to be good at like hiring teams. And I was a very, very bad manager. And then, I just kind of listened to what the market was giving me, put out an ask, and we launched this initial coaching program. I think we sold it for like $2,000 each. 20 students, and like sold it out in 48 hours. And that was like more money than I had made the last month with the agency, like about double. And it was way less work. And I was like, okay, this is where we're going. So like that was pivot 1 for us.
I love that. How are your empanadas coming along?
Bro, really good. I kind of forget to eat them. I know you mentioned this before the episode. You're like, you're going to start talking and you're just going to hold one and not eat it. So yeah, thanks for
I'm already on number 2. You've been doing most of the talking though.
There we go.
And what would you say for other founders are some often overlooked metrics or feedback sources that should be signaling a pivot that they should be paying more attention to?
So something that I actually don't like to do this, but I try to do it often, is just get on the phone with like our market more often. Because what I've realized over time is I have this like bias where I'm trying to fit everyone into like people that are coming to us. I'm like, okay, this is like a good client. This is not a great client. Like early on, when I'm getting 90% of these inbounds are content creators, in my head, I'm like, nope. We don't want to work with you. Don't want to work with you. Like, can't work with you. But then I got to take a hard look in the mirror and realize, like, it's not that these people are a bad fit for our offer. It's not that these people are a bad fit for our offer. It's that our offer is a bad fit for the market, right? So like constantly just being willing to get on the phone with people and have these realizations that it's us that's a bad fit for the market. So just listening to what people want. Like if you ask people what they want, they will tell you. And for me, sometimes it takes a while to have that realization. Like that first pivot was, okay, these creators, this is what they want. And like, I can offer it to them, but I'm just being stubborn over here and just telling them like, no, we can't help with that.
And can you share any other times where you've maybe resisted a pivot, and kind of what made you to realize that eventually that was the right course to take?
I mean, I think every time there's going to be resistance, because like change is something that's not easy, right? I look back at each one of these pivots, and every single one of them, I'm like, I wish we would have done that earlier. Like I saw the writing on the wall. I knew that it was eventually going to lead to there. And it was just more of like kind of dragging our feet with it. And a lot of times it doesn't have to be this all or nothing, right? It's not like, oh, we're going to shut down everything over here and start something new. I almost think of them as like a test, right? Because the first one we just walked through, if I sent that email and no one responded, okay, business as usual. We're still doing the same thing. So I wish I would have kind of tested other things quicker, because there's like, I guess there's two different types of pivots. There's one where you make a decision and it's irreversible, right? Those are really tough to do, and I try not to do that. There's other ones where it's like, hey, we're going to test this thing, right? We're just going to throw it out here, see what happens. Who knows? Maybe we get crickets. If we get crickets, nothing changed at all, right? So I wish I would have done that more.
Yeah, I love that. And let's continue the story. Walk me through how you got to pivot number 2.
We're going with the coaching program model. Did the first like 6-week cohort. We sold it out. Went awesome. Got a couple really good case studies out of that. And then slowly shut down the agency, right? We kept our current clients, and then it just kind of slowly phased it off over time. It wasn't like a, hard stop. And then really went all in with the coaching model. Like brought on a sales team, hired some people to help with the coaching, and we scaled that up a little over $100,000 a month. I think my team was like 6 or 7 people at the time. And then the next pivot that we ultimately made was a shift to a monthly recurring model. One thing that was difficult is we were just selling like one-time packages left and right. And so it was a constant like getting new clients every month. And it was like, each month we're starting at 0. And at the time, I think we had $40,000 in like monthly expenses. We're doing 100,000. But that's something that's like, there's a little pressure. It's like, okay, we got to at least cover this, or like people aren't getting paid. So there's a lot of stress around that for me. And also it was getting a bit harder to sell like kind of a high ticket package to a content creator, because most of these content creators, they weren't really making much money at all. So it was getting harder and harder. There was also a big push to this like monthly community subscription. Like you started to see other businesses go that route. Like the whole school model, like school is like huge right now. But even back when we made this switch, which was in 2023, there was still kind of a push to that more like monthly recurring model. So that was the next big switch we made, which was tough, going from selling like a $4,000 package to now we're going to sell $100 a month package. And like I knew it was the right decision, but I knew we were going to go through a lot of short-term pain, right? So we went from selling these huge packages, doing huge monthly numbers, to now, okay, we're going to have to build up this subscription base. And I know once we build it up, it's going to be much less of this like huge up and down, much more steady. Like we can predict our cash flows a little bit better. So yeah, that was the next big pivot we made. Still we're delivering the same things. The team shrank a little bit. And we were actually kind of at the tail end of that when we were in Costa Rica together. So during that time, there were a couple months where like we just went unprofitable, and I knew it was going to happen. I knew it was going to be pretty painful. And that was definitely something that was hard to go through, right? We had to cut the team in half, had to just, take it for a couple months of, all right, we're losing money. I'm tapping into savings, but I know we're going to get through this. We're going to kind of pull out on the other end.
And how are you able to convince the other stakeholders of your team that this is the right path to take forward? And even just dealing with your internal, like that chatter saying, oh, it's going to impact all these lives. How did you overcome that?
Dude, it was not easy. I mean, we had to let go of half the team, which was like, that was tough off the bat. And then I think it was just a matter of like painting that vision for the rest of the team, showing them like, hey, this is where we're going. This is why it's going to get better. I think a lot of people could feel it too. Like it kind of got to the point where I knew we needed to make a change. So yeah, there wasn't much of a process of like getting the team buy-in. It was kind of like, hey guys, here's the vision, here's the direction, here's where we're going. The team size, it shrank pretty significantly, but a lot of people were, they were ready for the challenge.
Yeah. And did you I'm sure you did, experience customer feedback first when you were winding down the agency model and then when you're winding down the higher ticket item. How did you incorporate that feedback and resistance to change from your customers?
I mean, in this case, it was one side of it was super easy because, now people who were kind of on the fence, they're like, oh, price is no longer $4,000, it's $100 a month. Amazing. Like, cool. So that was pretty easy. One thing that was a little bit difficult actually for us is I didn't want people who were already customers to now feel terrible because I paid for this thing 3 months ago and now you guys are offering something somewhat similar for 20 times less. So that was a difficult process to go through. But yeah, I mean, it's something that I'm always trying to do is keep my ear to the market and kind of hear what do people want? How can we help people differently? And one of the big ones was just price, It was hey, I would love to do this, but I don't have $4,000. Pretty much all these content creators they were trying to figure out how to do it full time. They're making a couple $1,000s here and there, and it just wasn't feasible. And something that's always been important for me is growing our network, right? I see that as our number one asset is this network of content creators. That's what we're building. And by putting a, $4,000, $5,000 paywall in front of that, the network grows super slowly. If we can offer something for free or offer something for $100 per month, that network is going to grow so much faster. So I knew it was the right decision, and it was just a matter of okay, we're going to be in tough times for a couple months. We got to just push through it.
Did you ever hesitate to think maybe we could do both simultaneously and having different offerings? And what made you decide to focus solely on one?
It's a good question. Looking back, there probably would have been a way to do multiple at one time. That could have even been the right decision, that it wouldn't have been as painful, offer two different kind of tiers of service. But one thing that I guess provided a level of difficulties. We're super community based. And so this would have had to have been almost a separate community. Now we're maintaining two things where it's if you're in here, it's a different level of service. So we ultimately did, after we launched kind of that low ticket monthly subscription, we ultimately did reopen some level of high ticket afterwards, which we probably should have just done that right from the gates. So yeah, that's something that we probably could have done a little bit better during that transition.
I remember in the Costa Rica trip, we were brainstorming ways to monetize your marketplace. And something I really respect about you is your insistence on not having a transactional marketplace like a lot of your other competitors are doing. How has that decision helped differentiate you on the market? And over a year later, how have those talks progressed? Yeah.
So going back to the network being the biggest asset for us, I realized that if we have this, we have this platform that connects brands with creators, right? Any brand can go on there right now. They can post a job and it's completely free. They'll have 100+ creators applying to work with them. And there's a lot of other platforms out there that do something similar to that, but all of them have a paywall. They want to keep you on the platform. And so I knew by keeping that free, it's just going to continue to build this network over time. And that's really what the asset is. And so one thing I would recommend, or something that I'm quite happy that we've done this along the way, is we've made a lot of pivots, but we've also done things that I know will continue just to make things easier and grow our brand, even if we do make these pivots, right? So I talked about that email list that I started growing early on. That's something that we're continuing to grow every single day. And even if we do make a little pivot where it's okay, now we're gonna focus on YouTube, or now we're gonna change this pricing model, we still are growing that network. We're still growing that email list. And so that's something that I'm always thinking about too. It's how, we can make all of these pivots, we can change our business model, but I want to be growing these assets along the way so that when I do make a slight pivot, I'm not starting from zero. It's not okay, we're making this change and now we're starting all over. It's no, I have this email list of, it's almost 100,000 people right now. Okay, cool. If we say, hey, we're focusing on TikTok Shop now, which is that's the route we're going. Okay, cool. Now we have this massive audience that we can tap into. So when we do make that new offer or that slight change, we have all of these things that we've built along the way that just make that easier.
I love that. And I'm curious, as Brands Meet Creators, is it fully bootstrapped or have you taken outside investment?
100% bootstrapped.
Nice.
So that is what makes some of these pivots a little bit more challenging, or I mean, potentially it's even easier. I don't know what it's like to be in a situation where you've raised money, but I constantly need to eat every month, you know? So like going through those few months of us being unprofitable was quite tough.
But I also know, on the other hand, that a lot of VCs are very scared of the term pivots, and there's a lot more buy-in, stakeholder buy-in that you have to achieve. You have more stakeholders.
That's a whole world that I'm like not super familiar with, but I don't know. I love the flexibility. I love the freedom of like, hey, we want to test something out. I'm going to test it out. Like I don't have to listen to anyone. You know, I don't have anyone who I have to, you know, get their complete buy-in. I don't have to play that game.
Totally. And when you've gone through all these different pivots, how did you best manage resource allocation between like the human capital of your team and what sources that you're investing in? How did you like keep particularly I'm interested in the agency cutoff. How did you create that timeline and transition some of the team over?
So we've kind of made some shifts recently where, you know, everything was focused on building our community, building the, you know, $100 a month recurring subscription. And we didn't really have any agency offering. But starting late last year, early this year, TikTok Shop has just like blown up like crazy. We saw the writing on the wall. We knew where things were going. We knew we needed to get involved. And so we started to play in that space a little bit more, right? Started kind of going back to the agency where like brands are now our clients. We landed some partnerships with TikTok, and that was an interesting, I wouldn't even necessarily call it a pivot. It's just more like a addition to the business as well. So in terms of your question, allocating resources, we just started off like, hey, it's kind of just me focusing on this, you know, maybe one other person on the business, kind of proving it out. And now we're slowly just taking like everyone and focusing everyone on that direction, because that's where we see all the money is right now. That's what all the brands want. That's what all the creators want. So it's kind of like a gradual process of, hey, let's put me, maybe like one or two other people there, and then slowly but surely shift more resources that direction.
Yeah. Did you have any hesitation about doubling down on TikTok Shop with, you know, all the recent news and legislation and still pending judgment on TikTok?
Yeah. So definitely. It is something that it's always in the back of my mind. But I know that, let's just say January rolls around and like TikTok's done. I don't think it's going to be like that, like cut and dry, like one day it just doesn't exist. I think it'll probably be like if they do eventually get banned, it'll be like a longer process. But it goes back to like just our ability to be adaptable. Let's say TikTok does go down. All of those views, right? Everyone who's a user of the app, like they're going to go somewhere. That attention, it doesn't just disappear, right? It might just all go to Instagram, or it might go all to YouTube or somewhere, or a new app pops up. And since we've built this network, like we still have all these creators, right? They're going to want to create somewhere. And what's going to happen is they're going to look to us to tell them like, okay, TikTok's down. Here's how you as a creator can capitalize on this. Or if you're a brand who was crushing it on TikTok Shop, okay, TikTok's done. Here's how you as a brand need to make this change. So like we've positioned ourselves where even if TikTok does go down, we will be like looked at as like, okay, everyone in the whole world has to pivot, right? And so like we still have this whole network. So I'm not too concerned about it. I do think every platform is shifting to the TikTok Shop model. That's just how these platforms, that's how they change over time, right? You look at Instagram. What do? They're pretty slow and they just steal features that work, right? You look at Instagram stories. That came right from Snapchat. Then you also look at how TikTok came out with like the short form video. Every single platform now is like a knockoff of TikTok in some manner. Every platform will go the TikTok Shop route. Right, you have this partnership with YouTube and Shopify where they're trying to integrate like e-commerce into the platform. Amazon's doing the same thing, but from the other standpoint, right? They started with the marketplace of products. Now they're bringing content onto the platform. Instagram's going to do the same thing. They're all going to do the same thing. So if TikTok does get shut down, like that attention, those consumers, those buyers, they're going to go somewhere. We have the whole network and we'll just help facilitate that transition for everyone.
Very smart. I love that. Mike, just looking back on your career, what's the biggest learning you've taken away from pivots and maybe resistance to moving faster that you wish you would have known earlier on?
So Two things. I've kind of mentioned both of these during this conversation too. But one, continue to build something that will always grow. It'll be an asset for you, and it allows you to pivot. You don't want to pivot and have to start from zero every single time, right? Like, don't okay, we're going to do this business model, and then, it doesn't work. We're going to do this other one, and now you're starting from zero. Like, our mission statement is building the creator economy. And like these little tweaks, everything still falls under that, right? This like audience that we're building, the email list, the YouTube channel, everything, even if I make a little change, guess what? I still have that asset, and it allows us to do that. So that's the first one. And the second one is constantly test stuff, right? Like, you don't have to think about a pivot as this massive, like, we're changing everything. I wish along the way I would just throw out a little, like, more of these small tests where, hey, we're going to tease this offer, see what happens. We're going to test this, see what happens. We're going to, shift this price over here, see what happens.
Speaking of testing, I've seen some of the more recent like creator houses that you've been doing.
Yep.
What's the early response to those that you've seen so far?
Again, just another thing that we're like, hey, this would be cool to do. Could help the business model. Who knows? Let's try it out. So yeah, most recently we had an event in San Diego. I think it was back in July. We took like 20, 25 of our top creators, brought them all out to San Diego. Some of them actually won tickets. So we would do these like monthly challenges with TikTok Shop where like whoever was the highest earning creator in our agency, they get a free ticket to the event. And so that was something that we were just playing around with. Like the first event, we lost a good amount of money on it. We knew that going in. We worked with someone that kind of showed us the ropes. So like, hey, don't expect to earn money on this first event, but we are planning another one for Q1 and we know how we're going to get them profitable. And all comes back to building our asset, right? I'm building this network. I'm building this audience, this community. And so like the in-person events, it's just like it's a core component of it, right? If we can bring people offline, to actually all get together, it's just going to help to grow that.
And what's the why behind it, beyond just building community? Have you seen tangible business impact so far from this?
100%. Yeah, it's like kind of goes back to our ethos. You mentioned it earlier. It's like I didn't want our platform to be transactional. That's how I feel about the whole business in general. Like I don't want it to just be like a transactional, commoditized business. Like I really want to build the brand, and like with that comes building the community as well, because that in itself is such a moat, right? Just where the whole world is going, AI. I don't know if you've been in the loop with all of these new like AI coding tools. Where like realistically, if someone wanted to, they could just copy and paste our entire platform tomorrow, right? Like the code is not the moat anymore. It's the actual brand. It's the community that's on there. Like if you wanted to, and you had a decent amount of resources, you could probably build a copy of Facebook, but it's not actually Facebook because you don't have any people that are on there, right? So it's like that network and the people are the asset. So yeah, the getting people together in person it's super important. And that's kind of the why behind it too, is like that is the moat, right? It's the network. It's the group of people.
I love that. A big proponent of that. I actually, in 3 weeks, going to the Philippines to bring some of our clients and our teammates together, and it's all about the human connection.
Let's go.
The why behind it.
Speaking of you going to the Philippines and your company and everything, you've been asking me all the questions. I kind of want to hear if you've had any pivots along the way, or like if you foresee any pivots that are coming, and how this whole topic relates to your business.
Probably the biggest pivot possible. New York in 2017 was actually an augmented reality trade skills training platform. So totally different from what we're at today as a BPO. But it was a great exposure to the level of talent here in Colombia. And we never got product market fit with that idea, but we realized, hey, we can leverage these Google level engineers out of Colombia and so much other operations talent around the world to find our current status. But I'll never forget, we built out this awesome tech, and then I went over to the US to test it out with some plumbers, and they were putting on their super heavy Microsoft HoloLens, and like 5 minutes in, they're just like, this shit sucks. They took it off, and that was like the soul crushing. Okay, we gotta find something else.
Have you had any like smaller ones along the way where it's like, all right, here's the, BPO, this is like the core business, but we're gonna have to change, how we do the placements or like the pricing model, or any of those like kind of smaller, maybe not even pivots, but just like tweaks to the business along the way?
Absolutely, yeah. Some clients, they prefer the traditional BPO setup where we essentially are the entire department. We handle their training, their quality assurance. And some clients prefer to manage directly the teams, and it's more of a staffing model where we do the recruitment and HR behind the scenes, but they really are integrated directly in those teams. And we're flexible with either one and can share best practices if the client decides to manage them directly. But yeah, that's something that's becoming a trend more and more often.
Love it.
Awesome, man. I'm the ops guy, so I'm curious with your Philippines-based team. What are some of the roles that you found the most success with them taking on, and some of the roles that they've struggled with?
Yeah. So right now we are about half US space, half Philippines. I would say, yeah, just about right down the middle. A little bit more US maybe. In terms of roles that we've hired from the Philippines, I actually just brought on an executive assistant, and that's been like massive. I don't know why I didn't hire an executive assistant earlier, but that's been an absolute like home run. Wish we would have done that earlier. We have a bunch of people on the team that are kind of like support roles. A lot of just like Swiss Army knife talent from the Philippines, really. Like I mentioned, our first 2 hires ever, still on the team. I couldn't even tell you what we initially hired them for because it's changed so much over time, right? Like we had someone that we initially hired. I think she was helping with like outreach. And then, next thing you know, she's kind of like managing my inbox, helping with those type of things. She's a video editor now, right? Like, so there's a lot of, I would say like Swiss Army knife talent that we have because we do change things a lot. And so we need people that are able to handle different roles. I've also brought someone on my team. He's initially was like a client. Now, he's our COO. He basically manages the whole team because I'm not the best manager. I don't like managing either. And something that he's done really well is just like get to know the team more, their goals, and like what they want to do, and just creating a space where that conversation can happen, right? So we have people on our team that were doing support roles that like they're super interested in the social media management, and like we just didn't really know that unless we like open the floor for that conversation. And it's like, okay, we're about to go hire a social media manager, and now all of a sudden we realize like, oh, we have someone on our team that's actually like good at that and wants to do that. Cool, like role is filled. Yeah, so I would say that's the biggest thing I've noticed with like hiring talent from the Philippines. Like we get people that are, they have so many different passions and like they're good at a bunch of different things, and they fit our environment of like things move quickly, and we need people to fill different roles.
That's one of the superpowers of the Philippines. There's a lot of generalists that you can quickly and adaptively move around, and they just have a super strong desire to please and want to say yes to new roles.
The hard thing is finding like titles for people, right? Because like we have someone on the team that she does all of like our support. She also does like reposting on social media. She'll also do like she's run our Instagram, and like our Instagram's been crushing it, right? It's had like 20,000 followers. Like we get a ton of leads from there, and like she's been making the videos and like posting all of them, and it's like I don't know what the title for her should be, right? And when we got another person in the Philippines that like she does like our video editing, but then she also helps with like doing all of the posting to our newsletter. She like approves the jobs on our platform, and it's just like, kind of like a little bit of everything, right? I want to just put the title of like Swiss Army knife on a lot of people.
Chief Swiss Army knife, chief hat wearer.
There we go.
Yeah, I love it. Awesome, Mike. And where can people find you online?
You can go to brandsmeetcreators.com if you want to learn more about our business, or just search Mike Rama on LinkedIn is where I'm the most active right now, actually.
Awesome. And final question, I'll give you a curveball.
Yeah.
What's one strongly held belief that you have that you would say more than 90% of people disagree with?
Ooh.
Give me your hot take.
Okay. Oh, this is a great question. Strongly held belief that I have that a lot of people don't. Something that we constantly try to do in business is actually undercharge significantly and over deliver in the short term in order to grow our brand and our business in the long term. So like that goes right back to our pivot of like, hey, we're going to stop charging like $4,000 and this is going to be $100 a month, and we're going to deliver the same service and people are going to love it, and it's just going to spread this word of mouth. Same thing with our platform where, hey, there's a dozen of these other platforms out there. They're all like a couple thousand to get, access to it. Ours is going to cost $0. We're going to lose money on that in the front end, but I know that's going to grow our business in the long term.
I'm a big believer in that too. Just front load the value.
Absolutely.
Awesome, Mike. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And
Appreciate you
enjoying
having me,
some
man.
empanadas.
Empanadas were great.
Empanadas are done. We still have some electrolyte left.
There we
That'll be
go.
coming after.
Finish it off.
Listo. Salud, parcero. Gracias.
Gracias, hermano.